listening to Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
Well, it's Christmas Eve, which is a great thing. Have Jonathan Moore today, another great thing.
Thank you.
On the show. We'll talk about his new podcast venture coming up. When is that going to start?
So hopefully in January or February, okay. So kicking off then.
Yeah, we're going to talk about what it's about and the purpose it serves. And if you know Jonathan, you know this will be right up his alley. You know, this is exactly what it does. He's been a youth minister for Metroplex Church forever, since he was a youth, which is something like that, right?
I had hair when I
had hair. Didn't we all? And then that's why I wear a hat, because I look at myself on the screen without a hat and like, my God, I look so old. And then you also talk about your podcast about Take Your Joy Back. Is that the name of it?
Take Back Your Joy, yes,
Take
sir.
Back Your Joy. Okay, close enough, right?
You had
it's going to be talking about how people have recovered from devastating events in their life and how they've overcome these things. And so we're going to talk all about that. But he also, most of y'all may know him from his teaching days at BHS when he was Mr. Math Teacher. You know, I can't tell you how many kids have said, Allard, you're okay, but you're no Jonathan Moore. You know, that kind of thing. So it was like hard to escape his shadow. Maybe that's why I left when I did, because I can't take it anymore. You know, he's just, you know, too awesome. But anyway, now you're in Joshua, right?
Yes, sir.
What are you doing for them?
So I wasn't seeking this position that I do now, but I'm a secondary math content specialist. So I traveled to our secondary schools and help teachers with teaching strategies and assessment and classroom management and just basically support. And I probably like you, I thought I'd never want to leave the classroom. And as a matter of fact, I went a little bit kicking and screaming on this position, but it's been a dream come true and it really has fulfilled what I think's in my heart for education.
Well, I'm going to ask you about that after the commercials and such, the ads, because I know what the classroom meant to you and what you meant to the classroom and the students. And I'm sure there was a lot of prayer and anxiety, I guess, about going to this new position and all that. It sounds like you're an instructional coach. Is that what they call you?
Basically.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Anyway, let's talk about the ads because they keep this thing going. And particularly Christmas season, we need to keep them going. Our place, of course, I bet, Jonathan, you've been there more than once, I bet.
Delicious.
Yes, as always. You know, it's interesting. Most of these ads, most of these places, the guests are patrons of, which makes it really easy to sell because they always have their own compliments for it and whatnot. But our place are scheduled. They're open today and they'll be open tomorrow until their usual hours, but they're not going to be open Christmas Day. So, you know, give the folks a break a little bit. And, of course, this is a great place to do it. You know, a lot of people have the weeks, you know, next couple of weeks off, and you don't feel like cooking sometimes. You go out, have a nice breakfast or lunch there. Also, Gina's, they are going to be closed until the day after Christmas. They're not open today or tomorrow. And they're doing that primarily because, you know, they have these late nights and they want their families to be able to enjoy Christmas. That's Otto for you. I mean, he's always looking out for the welfare of his employees. You know, he really does. I think that's one reason why he has very little turnover is because he takes care of his people. They're not just employees to him. And so, so when they reopen, you're probably going to be sick and tired of cooking, sick and tired of turkey. I know I don't care for turkey. You probably say, I'm going to go get a pizza, and Gina's is the place to do it. Have you been there yet?
I have not, but Taylor has told me that it's very, very good.
It is, and I'm not just saying it because they pay me to, so to speak. It really is. It's become a kind of a go-to place for where I do a lot of my business, if you will. Also, thank you to Wild Cigar. So you picked up the cigar smoking habit yet?
Me, but no. But I was at a Christmas party not too long ago, and the host was out on his back porch smoking one, and I just sat right there because I love the smell of cigars.
Was it at Wild Cigar?
I don't know if it was a Wild Cigar or not, but we were at their house, and I like the way it smells. I probably would make myself sick if I tried to smoke one.
Well, see, that's the thing. They could help you with that. If you walked in there and said, "I'm not a common smoker of cigars, but I want to try this or that, or have this kind of taste experience, if you will." They'll help you out. They have a very nice humidor, and they have people there. They got people that have been trained in it. These aren't just, you know, high school part-time kids. You know, these are guys that have been educated in tobacco and things of that nature. So you walk in that humidor, and they'll say, "What do you want?" And if you want a bold taste, you want a kind of a light taste, whatever, they can fix you up real well. And so they are. And plus, it's a good place to watch the ball games. There's going to be a ton of ball games on the next 2.5 weeks. And so you can go there and watch it in peace without, not like a sports bar where they're blowing you out and sensory overload. So it's a good place to do it. Also, cool. Southern Gym, they're open today. They're open until 1 o'clock tomorrow. They're doing pretty good business, as you might guess, this time of year. They have been really busy. Robin works there, right?
I heard that.
Yeah. And so she's coming home pretty tired. She's getting home about an hour after closing, and she just, don't bother me, because they're constantly on the go, and that's a good sign. It's better than sitting around playing cards, I guess. But Gala's got stuff for every wallet, from the high end to the more affordable or whatnot, and they do design services, cleaning services, repairs. That's a big part of their business. So there you go. So check out Southern Gym. Also, they're going to be probably closed after Christmas for about 5 or 6 days. They'll probably reopen a couple of times between now, Christmas and New Year's, and then they'll be open after New Year's on a more routine schedule. Also, thank you to our friends over at Old Pro Roofing. Roofing never stops, all right? We're supposed to have heavy storms tomorrow and Thursday, supposedly. But I'm a weather agnostic. I don't believe in weather unless it shows itself, So, but call John over at 817-734-2756, and John Williams will set you right up. He'll inspect your roof. He'll tell you what's the true story of your roof. We've had 2 or 3 people in our BNI group that have had him come over in the last month, and just because they want to make sure. And he doesn't upsell. He tells you if you have damage. He tells you if you don't. And also with the insurance issues, you need somebody in your corner if you do need a new roof, because some insurance companies are more cooperative than others. I know mine, Texas Farm Bureau, is one that's very, very cooperative. I've experienced it, but not all of them are Texas Farm Bureau, so there you go. Also, thank you to Jeff Kelly at Jeff Kelly Realtors, Jeff at jeffkellyrealty.com or 817-781-0546. There's going to be a lot of business in the state legislature next semester that deals with real estate and taxes, things like that. And you're going to need somebody that knows what they're talking about, who's an expert in moving in and out of this community. He's selling the 817, as he says, and he does really, really good job. And probably in about 6 weeks, we're going to have him back on again when things have moved forward in the legislature, and he can kind of keep track. Now, on that score, by the way, we're going to have Greg Cooper on in about mid-January, because he's really focused on property tax issues, and we're going to talk about what's going on down on that circus in Austin. But anyway, Jeff Kelly's the guy you want to talk to. Also, Hotworks. You ever been to Hotworks, Manny?
I have not.
You know what it is?
I do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
It does not sound fun, but I'm sure it's healthy in some way.
Well, Michelle was on about early December, talking about the need for hydration and things like that. She's very, very much into fitness. But the thing about the infrared workout is that, you maximize your workout without all the stress and strain on your body. It's not like going to the gym and throwing iron and, and all this other stuff and, all this pain and agony that you go through. It's got 11 different types of workouts, like Pilates and aerobics and bicycling and rowing and, all this, like I said, 11 different kinds. And it's all done with infrared. And it really maximizes your workout. So there you go. And lastly, I believe, Local Life. This month's issue is a great issue. It's about the nonprofits. They had 7 of our nonprofits. And that's another thing, is that you ought to, Jonathan, you ought to connect with the nonprofits, because they can probably get you plenty of guests, all right? Because we are really blessed to have the nonprofits that we do. They're taking the next couple of weeks off, most of them, and they need to. But when they come back, particularly the food pantries, are going to need some help. And because they're going to have a lot of people that probably are at the end of their groceries by the time they reopen and right after the new year. So there you go. Okay, I think that's it. Oh, I forgot one more. Sorry, Cody, don't get upset. We got your new logo, so I hope that helps. Burleson Buzz. Burleson Buzz is going to be incorporated into some of the ideas I have for expansion for this enterprise next January and February. At least that my hope is to start it late January and February. And I'm going to be bringing in Burleson Buzz more often. And they're a source for news for like your school board meetings or your basketball scores. And they're trying to provide a local news source, which we don't have. We haven't had one since Burleson Star went out of business. And we're trying to do an expanded version of what the Burleson Star used to do for this community. I got to remember that. All right. So that's the problem. When you get all these sponsors, you have to remember all of them and all this other stuff.
That was pretty impressive.
Oh, I've done it before. And anyway, so just briefly, how long have you been with the Metroplex Church?
So I was actually on staff at a church for many years in Fort Worth. And then my sister and her husband started it in, oh gosh, Monkey, you're going to tell me, 2005, I believe.
Yeah.
And so I was still on staff at a church. So about a year later, I joined up with them. So I've been with them since then. And so we're not a very big church, but I did student ministry at one time when we had a significant student ministry population, but I've always done worship. I love doing worship and kind of just do the more executive roles that come with church. So
I'm wrestling here with this arm here. It's, I don't know who precedes me here, but there must be 4'11" because I'm going to hunker over this mic. But anyway,
It was a kid.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. It was okay. Figures. Anyway, I know that as long as I've known you, when's it going to be BHS? It was like mid-90s, was it not?
it was 2005. Yes, sir.
No, I thought you were there long before then.
No.
All right, 2005. Okay. Well, anyway, we served together for about a decade, and over at BHS, and you find yourself missing some of that?
I do. And let me tell a little story.
Please.
To start off with, but you don't know this, and I think the world of you and Robin and your kids. I had Sarah in class, and
she says, hey, by the way, I told her he was going to be on the show. She says, oh, tell him I said hello. He's so sweet.
They don't get much more precious than your wife and your daughters. And I didn't not too much about Hayden, but I didn't have him in class.
Hayden's a pill.
He seemed like a good kid, though.
He is, but he's a pill.
But there was one time, and of course, I've always thought the world of you. And
you're very kind.
You asked me to come to your room one time and ask me about something, and I don't even remember what you asked me about, but I remember walking out of your room and being very honored that you were interested in my opinion about whatever it was. So
was it about a student or something?
I think it was something about leadership, maybe that was going on in our campus. But I walked out of your room like, who am I that Brad Allard? Allard wants to know what I think.
You vastly overestimate me, sir, but I appreciate it. I'll put that on the brochure we're creating. All right. But I appreciate that a lot. But I always know that your relationship with students was significant. It was fantastic. I mean, I know of many of our mutual students that not only just thought the world of you, but sought you for advice other than just how to do the algebra equation or whatnot. And that meant a lot. Of course, being involved with youth ministry and whatnot was a big deal. Now, you said that they dragged you out of the classroom kicking and screaming, but you seem to be okay with it, you sound like, over in Joshua.
I love kids. I saw it as, a quote-unquote ministry. And even though you couldn't ever preach in the classroom, which I don't think that I condone that either, but kids want to know that they matter. They want to know that they're important. They want to know that they're safe. And if anything, that's what I wanted my classroom to be. So, and the other part of me transitioning into the position I am in now is that teaching is one of the hardest jobs that I think is on the planet. It's
gotten that way, certainly.
It's definitely the most thankless one on there. And so I get to be a big cheerleader for teachers and encourage them and give them the experience that I've had over the 17 years of being in the classroom and ideas and things. And so I love helping those that are really busting their rear end for public education.
There's more than one type of witnesses, and the most effective witness is often the unspoken one. And I think that's what we all knew about you. Nobody misunderstood where you were in terms of faith and what you were in terms of faith. Everybody knew, but you didn't ever have to preach it, and you didn't hand out brochures and little tracts or whatever else like that. But nobody misunderstood that. And I think that's why a lot of the kids gravitated that way, because a lot of the kids, even if they're not really involved in church or whatever, I think they have some sort of need for belonging and to feel like somebody cares about them. Somebody, not just us, but, somebody higher than us cares about them.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's one reason why they gravitated over there so often. And we had a lot of teachers like that. I mean, that's what I miss about the classroom. I miss the kids to some degree, but the kids that come in, they do your thing, do their stuff, they get along well with you, and then they move on as they should, right? But the colleagues are there a year,
Right.
most of them anyway. And that's what year after year after year. Now, if I went back on BHS campus now, I bet there's only 2 or 3 people.
Right.
I'd recognize, I at the Toys for Tots event, I was over there and I ran into a couple of old colleagues, Alan DeBose and Ted Tomchesson.
2 great guys.
Yeah, and they are still there in various capacities. But as far as others, I bet I asked about this teacher and that teacher. Oh, they retired, they moved on, whatever. The only one that was still there that I worked with is Lana Davis. And
Lana.
yeah,
Love Lana.
Yeah, and so the rest of them are retired and such and moved on. And so I'd be pretty much a stranger if I walked on the campus, and that's fine. You move on. But as far as this enterprise, this is something really that's not so much sponsored by your church or a part of your church duties. This is something you felt led to do. So why don't you describe this?
Yeah, for a long time, and conveniently, one of my good friends is a podcast producer. So
You talking about this slob over here?
he is one of the best of the best.
Him? You talking about him? Okay.
You better watch.
All right.
But I've always loved the idea of hearing people's story. And there's actually a verse in the Bible in Revelation that says they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. And I think the last part of that is their story. And I don't think people understand that healing and restoration and hope comes from hearing other stories. So that's my hope for Take Back Your Joy podcast is I want people to tell their stories. I want to hear about what they came through, what they survived, what they endured, and honestly, just everyday life where they are in today. And I believe that people find healing and hope through that. And
They do. They found a lot of people feel like they go through these struggles by themselves.
exactly.
And if they hear other people, they feel like, well, that happened to me or something similar happened to me. I'm not alone in this world and I'm not unique in this particular crisis or catastrophe. And it is not so much comforting that other people are suffering, but other people have overcome suffering. That's what they find comfort in, is that other people have, discovered, rediscovered the means by which they can overcome tragedies in their life. And some of these catastrophes are self-inflicted, as we know.
Right.
And they feel like maybe I don't deserve it to be absolved, or I don't deserve to, have another start or another chance. And that's rubbish. Everybody, the Lord is the Lord of second, third, fourth chances, is he not?
That's right.
And so I think that's one thing that when I don't do this like you do as a professional, but when I talk to people and they feel like, well, I really screwed this up and I really, deserve what's happening. Well, okay, there are consequences, yes, but there's also redemption. There's also healing. There's also recovering from this crisis and moving forward and reestablishing your life. And this sounds like what you're trying to, tell the community.
It's sobering to think that we've never been more connected, quote unquote, connected as a society. And the amounts of loneliness and depression and self-loathe and not thinking you're worth anything are just exponential. And it's sobering to know that is a reality in many people's lives.
Well, and we both deal with young people. You deal with them not just as students, but also as, young Christians or hopefully Christians. I'm sure you have a lot of kids that come into your orbit that may not have made a profession of faith, but they're curious anyway.
Absolutely.
And a lot of them feel like they don't deserve forgiveness. They don't deserve to be loved. And of course, when you're 15, 16, 17 or whatnot, your emotions are out of whack anyway. But as far as that, a lot of people feel like, and the adults too, they feel like, well, I'm unworthy. And that's just so wrong. And I'm hoping this podcast will tell people you are worthy, not just of the sacrifice that Christ made, but also you're worthy to have another fresh start.
One of the things that I've seen, kids that were in my classroom back in the day, and now they're in their 20s and 30s, is that they do find me on social media and ask me about different things and spiritual things. But it's it's wonderful to see that God is moving in their heart and that God is showing them that there's something more to life than what you're living, and they want answers. They want truth. They want to believe in something that's real, that will satisfy their heart, that will give them comfort. And I believe that the Lord Jesus Christ is that, and it's really cool to see how God moves in their lives, and that they remember their old bald-headed geometry teacher from back in the day, and so they find him on Facebook and say, hey, do you remember me? And of course, 99% of the time I do, but that they want to find hope in their lives. So many times, I've sent Bibles and devotionals and say, give me your address if you're cool with that, and let me send that to you. And hopefully that God ministers through those things to them.
Well, and that's the deal, is that you and I were both blessed to be dealing in the jobs that we did. I mean, they had their stresses, and we had tough days, and we had to deal with, adults in the situation that sometimes made things more troublesome, if you will. But kids are what they are, and most of the kids I dealt with were pretty good kids, really. They may have made dumb decisions sometimes and whatnot, or bad choices, but they were pretty good kids, and they just needed somebody to tell them that sometimes. And, and social media is kind of a mixed blessing. I mean, the same social media that you just referred to, people can still contact you and talk with you and whatever else, happens for me too. It also leads to a lot of this, what you're talking about, this alienation, this depression, because they see everybody else, that fear of missing out routine.
Right.
They see, well, everybody else's life is doing great. Mine's total crap. They think there's something wrong with them when they see their peers or other people living their best life. And we don't really know that, they're not going I have a couple of ex-students that have been putting some pretty dark things on there about their lives. And I kind of private messages, hey, if you really think what you're saying is true, you need to get professional help. But the rest of them, it's like, oh, here's a picture of me at, at Mardi Gras, whatever, and people that see this think everybody else is having a great life and I'm not. What's the matter with me? And that's probably what you're dealing with.
It really is shocking, once again, sobering. Then they look at the studies of just like teenage girls, that the number of hours they spend on social media is directly correlated to self-worth, self-harm. And it's just very shocking and sad that the more they are connected to social media and view it, and whatever screen time, as we call it, the higher levels of depression, the higher levels of loss of self-worth. And I think one of the most scariest one is self-harm. And there's got to be an answer. There's got to be hope for people. And I don't know that didn't necessarily what I do or what I'm going to do is specific to any specific age group, but if it gives hope to one person, then I'll do it.
Well, particularly, girls can be a lot meaner. I mean, that's the reason why they made Mean Girls, right? The guys, it's like, if they started insulting each other, so let's fix this out behind the barn kind of thing, and then it's usually pretty good. But the girls, they could be pretty harsh, and self-image of the girls, they think, oh, I'm not pretty enough, I'm overweight, I'm all this other stuff. And they see others, in their age bracket, and they're all beautiful and slim. They don't realize that, filters do a great deal of work on these pictures, right? And so, but anyway, back to your show, you just felt like this is what God wanted for you, to have an avenue, I suppose, to publicize what can happen positively, even if you've had some sort of tragic thing happen.
Yeah, I think that's the definitely the byproduct of it. And I'll be honest with you, Mr. Allard, I just like hearing people. I like to talk.
Obviously,
I like to listen to their stories. I like to hear what their thoughts are, and I hope that that's one of the main focuses of, and just going through making the list of people that I would like to have on it. And you're going to be one I'd love to have on my show.
Oh, okay, well, sure.
So we'll book you, sir.
Well, that's fine. That'd be great. I'd be honored to do so. As far as like tragic things in my life, well, we've had some hard things happen, and and some people are reluctant maybe to publicize that on the air, but I'll do the best I can.
Of course.
That'll be great. And as far as when you're in your mind, when you think about the type of people, are you thinking about people that have made bad choices, or people that had bad things happen to them, catastrophic things or very tragic things, or you're looking for people that made mistakes that they've had to overcome, or both?
Probably both.
Okay.
And even people that just are doing exceptional things in their lives, and hearing their stories, hearing their what they're doing in their worlds. And I don't think we hear enough. Like you've said, so much of what we do is filtered and photoshopped and highly edited, and that's not what the reality that people live in. They want to hear the real. They want to hear the nitty gritty. They want to hear what people are saying, and I do too. And so hopefully that's what it turns out to be. That it just is a place where people can tell their story.
Well, to paraphrase the great Jim Morrison of the Doors, nobody gets out of here alive, and and it's nobody goes through life unscathed,
Right?
And I know people that seemingly have it all going on, and then as you get to know them, find out, oh man, that's tough. I didn't know that happened to them. I mean, everybody that I know anyway, my age bracket, they don't talk about this stuff very easily. They may talk about it with their family or close friends, but they're not the kind that would publicize it on Facebook or any of the social media, on Instagram or whatever. And most people my age are not on TikTok and that kind of thing. And so they're just my generation. It was taught and brought up in a way that, hey, these things happen. Life's hard, then you die. And like my dad would say, there's only one fair in this life, and it comes in October. And so, but you're going to find out there's a lot of people that you would see from the outside. It all looks great, and they're dealing with a lot of baggage, a lot. And I don't know anybody that really hasn't not had tragic things happen to them.
Right.
I don't know many people that have regretted some of their actions in their past. And I'm one of them. Oh gosh, yes. That's why when people say, "Oh, you were great and doing all this," I'm like, "Well, I very much appreciate that. You just don't know how stupid I can be."
I don't see you in that light.
Well,
and
trust me.
on my podcast, I want you to be seen as the influence that you are, and that you have been.
Well, maybe when I'll be able to show another side, so to speak, that even though you'd think I pretty much have it together. Oh no. There were periods I would not want to live the years 2012 through 15 again for various reasons. And some of it was bad choices. Some of it was bad happenstance. Things happened that were not my fault, but they happened anyway. And so there it is. But there you go. As far as you're going to try to get these guests, where are you going to get them from?
Different places. Most of the ones that I would ask for, I've got a couple of lists going right now, but the majority of them are people that I know, people that I have interaction with in our community and so forth. But then there's some that are on my wish list, my celebrity list. So we'll see how that turns out. So, Taylor always tells me the worst they can say is no. So I'm taking that as
that's exactly right.
He tells me that all the time.
You'll never know the answer if you don't ask.
Oh, well, I'm not real good at pushing for certain things, like sponsorship and whatever else. But because, it's like, particularly when I'm dealing with somebody that I knew as a teacher, and I don't want them to feel like I'm trading on that relationship to get an answer. I want them to, if I ask them to sponsor or be part of this new enterprise I'm launching in February, I want them to feel like it's to their benefit.
Right.
And not because they're doing me a favor. They don't need to do me favors. They need to do what's best for their businesses or their circumstances, period. But these celebrities, I mean, we talk about calling Kelly Clarkson or something like that.
I don't know that I know how to interview her, but different ones that I've seen, and maybe they're not celebrities to other people, but people that have been influences in the Christian world or in book world, or we'll just see what happens with them. So.
Well, I'm not going to name any that I could suggest to you on the air because I don't want to put the pressure on them. But maybe after we're done here, off the air, I can give you a couple of people I think I have good stories.
I'd love that.
And the thing about some of these stories, it isn't often just a cataclysmic event. It may be an ongoing situation they have to deal with, like if they're a parent of a special needs child.
Right.
That's an ongoing thing. Or if they're having to care for elderly parents, that's an ongoing stress. How do you find your joy in that when you're dealing with these kind of life-related issues?
Actually, I just came through that. My mom passed away in May.
Oh yeah.
After dealing with a couple of years of frontal lobe dementia, PSP, and so yeah, there again, it goes back to that. If somebody can hear my story about what we dealt with Mom, and it brings healing and hope to them, then that's my goal.
Well, on a side note, our friend Camille Bransom
Yes.
had a podcast. It's still an active thing. Has a podcast, but many of y'all out there in the vast listening audience know that she's had a very serious health issue,
Yes.
and she's recovering. And she's I've been in contact with her daughter, and she's in rehab, and so she's still hospitalized, but she's made great progress, and hopefully at some point in the future, she'll be able to resume her normal duties, including that podcast, which is based on what you just talked about.
Yes.
End of life issues. My father's having the same issue. He has dementia. And, we're going to see him tomorrow. And it's not like he won't know who I am, but he'll be asking me the same things over and over.
Right.
And he'll be asking me about things that occurred, several years ago, as if they happened yesterday. And, that's just part of it. Robin and I are the only couple I know of that both sets of parents are still alive.
Wow.
And they're all in their 80s, and they all have health issues, and they all have, not just dementia, but, all the various ailments you get when you're in your mid to late 80s. And what do you do? It's like I can be upset and complain, or I can just deal with it. And fortunately for me, in my parents' situation, I have a sister that helps quite a bit. They live about 3 minutes from them, but not everybody has that.
I've said anybody that asks about us dealing with Mom is watching your parents grow old is not for the faint at heart.
No, it isn't, because you remember them in different contexts, right?
Yes.
And like my dad was very sharp in business-related and finance-related issues. He was a CFO for a big company, but he also was good on like personal financial level, and that kind of thing. And he gave us really great examples of how to handle your personal business. And now my mother has to do everything, and it's just not good. But it is what it is. But as far as like when you envision this, what kind of situations are we talking about?
Well, one in particular, and I talked to them, I guess, a week ago, but along these lines is a couple that goes to our church, and their little boy was born very, very premature and spent the first year of his life in the hospital. And he is now home. He's about 3, and still has a tracheotomy and different stuff like that, and is dealing with growth issues. But Taylor knows this couple, and actually you went to a concert with one of them.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
So he went to concert with the dad. But anyway, I told them, and I actually want to have her father-in-law. Her father-in-law is one of the deans at Nelson, or Sagu, what used to be known as. And so I'm going to have her dad
Is
on.
that where you went to school?
I did not, but I love Sagu, and now not called Nelson. But I told him, I said, I just want people to hear your story, hear what you went through, hear what what
Would I
happened
know this
with Gideon.
person?
Their names the Worshams, and hope they don't mind me, but they sounded agreeable to be on my show. But at Jim and Kayla Worsham, and their little boy's name is Gideon.
Gideon, good name.
Oh gosh,
One of my favorite stories in the Bible.
he fulfills everything about that story.
I know. It really is one of my favorites. Like, I always think about Gideon when the Lord says, no, you need to, there's too many men, too many men for this. You send them home. Good plan, God. I'm about to take on 10,000 Philistines, and you're telling me to send 90% of my crew home.
Well, that's one of the things when God started out with Gideon, that he told him what Gideon didn't even believe over himself. He said, you're a mighty man of fearless courage. And most people think that they're the least of the least.
Right.
And so I think that's one of the beautiful stories about God, is that he'll tell you the things that he sees in you and not necessarily what you see in yourself.
It is. I can imagine when Gideon's on the threshing floor and God says, hello, mighty man. And Gideon's like, are you talking to the guy behind me? I guess. I don't know. But it is one of my favorite stories for that reason.
Yes.
And it's those are the kind of stories people need to hear, because they always feel like, well, I don't sing well, I'm not talented, I'm not that smart, or I'm not good looking, or blah, 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 blah. That God can't really use me. That's so untrue. God uses whom he uses. And you look at it over and over again, who God chose often was like the last one we would consider. David was the youngest boy, and Samuel goes out and looking for him and said, your you're missing a kid. Oh, it's just David. He's out.
Right.
He's a knucklehead. So, and that was the one that Samuel anointed. So that's the kind of thing I think people need to hear, is that God will use whom he uses, not what we would think is a logical choice at all, And that's kind of in a side way when I deal with these nonprofits and I talk to the people and they wish they could give thousands of dollars, but I can only give 10. But that $10 is going to be the widow's mites. That $10 is probably going to be more valuable in terms of eternal reward than a big check.
Absolutely.
So we talk about this a lot on talk with the nonprofits. And that's, again, somebody you might want to connect with because they probably have dozens. Well, my English ain't good. But Barbara Tatum is now cringing she doesn't know why.
Hey, Barb. I love you, Barb.
Yeah, we still communicate. She spends a lot of time in Houston with her son
Ryan,
and grandchildren.
yes.
Yeah. But anyway, we talk about a lot of this with the nonprofits about how people really demonstrate that sacrificial giving in a way and no one else knows, except for the Almighty, right?
And he's more than enough to know.
The great bookkeeper, as they call him, right?
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, the chief accountant. But anyway,
with it being this close to Christmas, and we talked about this at our church recently, but Zachariah and Elizabeth and how they were old in age and barren and didn't have any hope of children and long beyond that, but God had a plan.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing I think your show should, you know what you want your show, but hopefully your show will bring out is God's plans aren't going to be disrupted by tragic events necessarily or bad decisions if you allow them. Now, if you want to dwell in these things, God's plan may be delayed, but if you are able to overcome these things with his help, then God's plans are going to be borne out. And that's just, I've learned that about myself as well. Because there's some, I don't get too far into it, but there are some things I said, wow, I can't be used by God. And God's kind of like, you let me worry about that. That's kind of where what your show is about, isn't it?
It is. And I'll just, off the cuff with you, you're one of the richest people I know.
Well, tell that to my banker, but
I know your wife,
yeah.
I know your children, and I know that kind of stuff doesn't just happen. So I know that you would agree with me that you're extremely, extremely blessed.
I am, very much so. And I am blessed particularly with Robin because she believes all things, hopes all things, prays for all things. And even when I sometimes get a little cynical, I guess, or like, when I say cynical, it's like, oh, God, it's not, grumble about God. It's more like, well, that's just life in a big city, and that's the way it is. She's still very hopeful after all these years. She still reminds me of the woman I married,
It's awesome.
And that's one of the reasons I was attracted to her is they're just, she has her moments. She has her periods of doubt. She has her periods of depression, if you will. I don't know, not like clinical, but when she's sad, I guess is better. When I say depression, I don't mean treatable depression. Just everybody goes through those down periods, but she still finds comfort and faith in Scripture. She's a lot better at it than I am.
Well, she's kind of the reason I'm sitting here today. So I ran into her at Walmart.
Well, that was, she mentioned that, and she said he will be on your show.
Thank you, Miss Robin.
It's like, well, okay, yeah, we'll do it as soon as we can. Like there was no conversation. It was he is going to be on the show. When you talk about these people, though, it's hard to find people that are willing to be completely transparent about all this. So you're going to have to find the right guest for that. How often do you plan to be on?
So I'm thinking of course, Taylor and I are still hammering this out, but I'm thinking every couple of weeks that we'll do a podcast. And I think for my schedule right now, that'd probably be a pretty good thing. So.
Well, when school starts again, you're going to have to do it in the evenings?
Well, we have a 4-day school week.
Oh, that's right.
So,
yeah.
So I'll take advantage of the Mondays that we have.
So
off.
it's Mondays. Okay. I remember Joshua did that. And I know at the time it was a real big deal, but apparently now a lot of people said, this ain't so bad.
I mean, scores will tell the story, but as far as like mentally for people and students, it's been a plus.
Not to get too far off the track, but what do you think that is? That the scores and whatnot are better that with the 4-day work week?
We'll see what happens. Our scores are good, and so that's part of it too. Is you want to maintain where you have been and so forth, and of course you have one day less to technically teach. But I think every indication that I've seen with our teachers is that they're still very, very good at what they do, and I think we're going to be okay. But the opposite thing, and if you look on actually Burleson, Residents Talking just had a recent one about what people think about the 4-day school week, and a lot of parents chimed in that there's something their kids are better rested, they're more well prepared for the week, and I believe that's true for teachers as well.
I don't think I'm welcome on Burleson Residents Talking.
Oh, no.
So I at least haven't tried. There's a handful of people there that, have less than complimentary things to say about this enterprise I'm doing, but that's their problem. It really doesn't bother me at all. But as far as Mondays, are the teachers required to work those Mondays? Or
no? So if the pretty much one Monday out of the month is professional development. So the kids are not there most Mondays, but then one Monday is professional development.
Well, I know another school district tried this, and they did it on Fridays. And the Friday was meant for tutorials, remediation, such as that. So they were still working the 5 days. I don't know if they still do it. I think it was Plano that did it, but I'm not sure.
Right. I remember hearing that too.
Yeah, but I don't know. I haven't talked to anybody in BISD in the last 2-3 months, so I haven't heard if they're considering. But anyway, we're off the track, and we're going to talk about your show, doggone it. What's the name of the show going to be again?
Called Take Back Your Joy. And yeah.
You're talking about you need sponsors. That's the practical side of doing these podcasts.
Yes, sir.
Got to keep tailoring that Tesla. And he's just shaking his head over there. Are you going to get that new Tesla pickup?
Maybe.
It looks like it looks like something out of a science fiction movie from the 80s.
Cool.
It reminds me of I don't know. That's not a pickup.
Yeah.
That Ford 250 is a pickup, not this.
Oh yeah, I gotta get a Ford. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that back to the matter at hand. So
You started it.
Who are you looking for sponsorship?
Oh, gosh, I don't know if I've thought that far into it. Maybe that's not good, but
it'll come to you, and God will send somebody.
I think anybody that wants a show that is not, won't try to be controversial. I won't try to be preachy. It will definitely be a show that just people are talking and about their stories, about their lives, and if that's a place where you want your business advertised, and you have so kindly said and graciously said, I have a pretty good reputation in our community.
Very much so.
And so hopefully people will like that and want to be advertised on Take Back Your Joy.
Well, yeah, and you'll probably encounter the same thing I did. A lot of people that I've talked to about it said, Mr. Allard, I really like what you do, and I like what you did. But they also have to make financial decisions for their businesses as well. But also, you may find somebody that isn't really interested in advertising as such, but they'll sponsor you behind the scenes, patrons, I guess. Taylor here, you don't have to put it in a message here, but absolute legend on the show. Wouldn't be who I am today without him.
Taylor,
Jonathan Moore is the best, and I've been here 5.5 years. He's never said that about me, but whatever. Yeah, so I'm just a cash cow for him. Is that it?
Well, he's very kind to say that.
Well, yes, he is. But I'm just, you may find patrons more than sponsors. A lot of people said, I want to make this work for you, but I don't have anything to advertise, or I don't really have, a logo or anything. I've had a couple of people do that for a little while. I mean, they don't do it on a long-term basis, but they'll do it for particular issues and things like that. And I've had a couple of people do that over the years. And so I don't know if you have anybody in your life or at the church that has the kind of wallet that's just going to throw out that kind of money, but God will put somebody in your path. All right, I really fully believe that. When I was describing, when Robin was describing what you want to do on this show, I said, there's a real need for that.
I hope so.
And so I think somebody somewhere is going to come through on it. But I guess on a practical level, you should have an idea of how much you want to, build them for, so to speak, and all this other stuff. And you have a logo, which Taylor, I'm sure, can whip up in about 20 seconds. He's
done.
He's that. Oh yeah, pretty much. I mean, he's got that voodoo he do and all that. And so, as far as like alternative platforms like YouTube and whatnot, that's part of the deal. It's, I'm going to look into, again, going back on to Apple and Spotify. When I went through a period of financial crunch, so to speak, when I lost a couple of sponsors for valid reasons. Sponsorships come and go. The businesses go out of business, businesses change, businesses need to cut back. And so my podcast is something that they have to squeeze the belt on, and that's fine. I understand all of that. But you'll get sponsors, I'm pretty sure.
I hope so. Thank you for the encouragement.
Well, it is. And as far as like advertisements, I would think you're right. Some people want to be associated with. That's how I sell this podcast. A lot of people, it's not so much just me, but they like the fact that there's a platform for the nonprofits and for the city and for Chamber of Commerce and whatnot to give information out. Particularly with the nonprofits, they very much appreciate it. Because it gets out, their special events and whatever else. And they could hear me rant about Joe Biden at some other time, In fact, that's what I'm going to be doing next Monday. My show is going to be my own personal Festivus. Yeah. Are you familiar with Festivus?
Yes, I am.
Because I have a lot of problems with you people. I'll be the airing of grievances.
Well, I think this time of year is probably giving you a lot of material. There's a lot going on right now.
Yes. I'm going to have a full-on rant next Monday. Do you have a particular time that you have in mind for doing this? You said on Mondays, but like in the morning, in the evening? What?
I think it's probably just going to depend on what the schedule's like with Taylor. So,
well, I know I do it at 11 here on Mondays, so I know he's here.
I'm going to have to boot you. Sorry, he wanted 11.
Yeah, all right.
Just kidding.
Yeah, right. See, the abuse.
Say what you want carefully here. I have a new button.
Yeah, I know. Just the abuse. Anyway, so there I'm out. All right. But as far as, another piece of advice, if you will, is to try to be on the same schedule as much as possible.
Okay.
As opposed to just kind of sporadically throwing them out there because, it's not so much that people will, oh boy, it's Mr. Allard's neighborhood. It's 11 o'clock. I got to hear it. No, they'll hear it on their own time. But they also want to know it fairly consistent production kind of thing.
Right.
And like I said, like I just mentioned, most people hear this on their own time. Next 2 or 3 days.
Right.
You'll get responses from a show that that did about a month ago. And, you look at your numbers, after a couple of days, say, ooh, that show really stunk it up. And then you look at it 2 weeks later, say, actually, it was pretty good. So, people will access it when they got the time to do it. I understand people work for a living, so you never know.
Well, I think you've got a really good voice in our community. So it's once again.
You're making me blush talking on it.
Well, like I said, I've always respected you, but you have a voice that needs to be heard. So,
well, thank you, and you definitely do too, and for similar reasons. And I really do believe that this could be very therapeutic for some people. They just need to know that they're not walking through this by themselves. They may have been brought up in church. And they may have kind of left the church. And then some people think, well, gosh, I used to go to church, but I don't anymore. God's not going to take me back. Oh, yes, he will.
Absolutely.
Yes, he will. That's what the whole prodigal son story is about. It's a lot deeper than just a snot-nosed kid, wanting his money now. It's, I've talked to a couple of people like that, and they basically feel like that they're not worthy for God to, reclaim them or something. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not true at all. If that were true, none of us would be in good shape.
We'd be in bad shape. You probably remember this, Mr. Allard, but Benny Hester's song, When God Ran, from the 90s. I don't know if I was singing that yesterday. Funny that you brought up the story, but
the Benny Hester in the 90s, that may be, no, I wasn't grooving on that in the 90s.
It was a Christian guy, and the song is about the prodigal son, but the chorus is, he ran to me. He took me in his arms, held my head to his chest, and my son's come home again. What a wonderful story.
The only prodigal son song that I remember is Keith Green.
Yes.
From way, way, way back in the day. Of course, he died when I was in college.
Amazing guy.
So, yeah, and he's still 40 years later. You know, you listen to it now, so that still has some relevance, certainly.
That voice,
Yeah.
amazing voice.
I actually saw him in concert
Wow.
when I was a senior in high school.
Wow.
And he was at it doesn't exist anymore, but the old Bronco Bowl over in South Dallas. And the Bronco Bowl was like a 2,500 seat arena, and right next to it is connected to the bowling alley. And so they had all these concerts and such. And I 2 or 3 times, our church youth group would hop in a bus and go saw him, saw a group that us old timers in the Christian music community know called Daniel Amos, but they haven't been producing new music in 20 years and that kind of thing. A few other people, like that.
Keith Green.
One
of those signature voices like Karen Carpenter. They just beautiful tones and stuff.
I think my first non-Christian concert was Rush.
There you go. That's a good one.
When I got home, I had to throw away the clothes because I didn't want my mom thinking I was part of that crowd, because there was quite a stench to them. So, and I don't mean cigarettes.
No, we were at a Hall & Oates one time, same situation. I've never smoked anything, but I did that night. Not on purpose.
Not purposely, no. Yeah. But anyway, we get off the track pretty easily here, don't we?
That's okay with me.
Yeah, okay. So you said you want to start this in about 4 to 6 weeks, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how are you going to reach out to the community, so to speak, besides Facebook? We know we could always promote your show here too. I mean, that's part of it, but you're just going to be other ways you'll need to try to promote it. I would try to contact. You probably have contacts with the churches still.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Local, like First Baptist, like my church, whatnot. You can talk to somebody. Well, we're still in the pastor search committee routine. Same thing with Graceview Baptist as well.
I didn't know Graceview. Yeah, no, I take that back. I did.
Yeah.
But y'all's pastor there,
Ronnie Marriott?
Dr. Marriott. I did a funeral with him, Diana Croker, if you remember Diana.
I was there.
And of course, it was during COVID, and he was one of the kindest men I've ever encountered.
We were sad to see him go, but he had good reasons. He's going to move closer to his parents who are both in assisted living.
Yes.
And said, how can you be critical about that?
My hat's off to him.
Yeah, I mean, so that's life, right? I could tell you a couple of names of people at Graceview that probably give you good information about people to do this and all that. Another piece of advice is be careful, though, that you have vetted these people on your show. Because when I've had people that I don't know personally want to be on the show, I do background checks.
Okay.
Not FBI, all right, but you like that? I just get my friend Cash Patel to look them up or whatever. But as far as I will look into their social media. I will ask people that may know them. I'll ask them, who can I talk to? Because you want to do the best you can. And I could say in all the years I've done this, there's only been one guest I've regretted, and it didn't matter who it is now, so who cares? But I'm just saying, most of the time, these are legit. I just want to make sure.
Well, you've given me some good ideas, because I do love, I better not say it out loud, but I love some of our spiritual leadership in our community. Rick Owen is one of the best guys ever.
Sam Ross is another one you got to talk to.
I know Sam Ross.
Ross, because former student.
Yes.
And he's kind of been helping run the church while we're in the pastor search. Also the associate pastor, the Bolin family. I know that. Jennifer is who I know best. I had her on the show a week ago. She does a photography studio, but she and her husband, while they're in a pastor search, kind of running the Graceview while they look for a new pastor.
Gotcha.
And that's somebody to talk to.
Okay.
And they're wonderful people. They really are.
Very cool.
Yeah. So anyway, we're almost out of time. I want to let you finish this off. Tell us everything we need to know about your new production.
Well, I hope to start it up quick, and I hope it's a blessing. I hope it, like you said, it's something that people can do while they're running on the treadmill or walking the neighborhood or whatever, and it's something that gives them hope and healing. And I want people to be able to tell their stories that wouldn't have a platform outside of what you do here. And so I'm just praying and believing that it's something that hits the spot with people and in a way God moves in their heart.
If you don't have guests, will you still do the show?
I don't think I will. I think I really want it to be about people. And one of the things that I've done at our church from time to time is interviews just in our midweek service, and I absolutely love it. And so hopefully it just develops into that.
Okay. Well, you might want to consider, like, if you have somebody fall through at the last minute, having something in the bullpen, so to speak. Fortunately, I got inventory, so if
you're by any chance going to talk about Cash Patel, I'm going to tune into that one.
Oh, I am next week.
Okay, I'm going to listen to that one for sure.
And my goal is next year to also try to focus on that a little bit more. But what happened in my show, it may happen to yours as well, is that I started out 5.5 years ago wanting to talk about, the latest Trump or Pelosi outrage. And then I started inviting local people on, like Next Step Women's Center. And I think they were the first nonprofit I had, or the Children's Advocacy Center, on and on. And then started having the local candidates and office holders come in. And that's kind of where the show is morphed to, evolved, if we could use that word, evolved.
I like it, though.
Yeah, but it's, I have some people say, hey, we want to hear you rant a little more. So I'm going to try to do that. But the point is that your show may start off in one direction and then kind of move to another. And now I'd say probably twice a month I'm able to rant, whereas now, like, I got the Chamber of Commerce on first thing in January, and I'm going to have Victoria Johnson on. I'm going to have Greg Cooper with the tax issues. I'm going to have I'll just look right here. You're going to become good friends with Google Calendar or whatever you use. Colin Gregory from the police department and things like that. Colin also is involved in the ministry. So
I had his kid in class. Absolutely love that family.
Mm-hmm. I had Colin as a student at Hill College.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and he's Colin. I mean, he's a good kid or a good man. I mean, he was no kid when I had him. He was like early to mid-20s then. But he's a good man. And let's see. I also have our friends coming up from the city, like Alex Phillips, who's going to be talking about city development about the second week and that kind of thing. So anyway, that's could happen is that you start off. Also, what's going to happen is once you get established, there's going to be people that are going to contact you. You're not going to have to hustle as much because they're going to say, "Hey, I want to tell my story."
Cool.
Yeah. So
if it's organic, I'll love every minute of it.
That's what happened. That's what happened to me. I mean, one thing led to another, and I talked to this person and said, "Hey, you need to talk to these people," and that's how I got Crowley House of Hope on. Just said, hey, you need to talk to those people over there, that kind of thing. And that's what's going to happen here. Somebody's going to hear your stories in your show, and they're going to say, I have something to say. I have something to tell. I want to be part of the uplift, that kind of thing.
Very cool.
Taylor, doggone, what are you doing for Christmas?
I am partying.
No doubt.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time.
You and Elon, I guess.
Yeah, I'm flying out with him tomorrow, and then we'll be back. I'm just kidding.
What do they call him now?
Burleson.
What are they calling Elon? First buddy? That kind of thing.
The president's response yesterday was a little bit clever to that. He's because they were, calling him president. He said, well, he's not American born, so that's not possible.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm going to be in Corsicana tomorrow, and other than that, not much. I mean, our kids at the age where they have other families they have to go do stuff with now.
Right.
So, and it's fine. Christmas Day, if we don't, just Robin and I, sleep late. All right. Y'all have a good Christmas, y'all. It's don't get too rushed in your day. Take time because you never know, particularly when, like I'm talking about my parents, I don't take these for granted.
Right.
I don't know how many more Christmases I have with them. So y'all, take a little extra time, hug a few more necks, whatever else. And we'll see you next Monday. We're just going to have one more show at the rest of this year where I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to be airing my grievances. Festivus for the rest of us. And we'll see y'all next week.